The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. They are a deep part of American military history. Today is National Buffalo Soldiers Day, honoring the black men who fought in the American Civil War. We got a chance to talk to the Buffalo Soldiers Museum right here in Houston about their importance and why we honor them today. And our guests are here joining us on The Factor Uncensored, recognizing the importance and significance of the Buffalo Soldier and the Buffalo Soldier Museum here in Houston, Texas. Desmond, for those who are not familiar with the Buffalo Soldiers Museum, tell us the significance and the history of it first.
Yes, the Buffalo Soldier Museum was started in January of 2001. We are in our 20th year. It just started from our founder, Captain Paul Matthews, who was really interested in about the story. He studied at Prairie View A&M University and read 2 paragraphs about the story and wondered why was there not more information. Started collecting artifacts, memorabilia, books, and attending conferences of the 9th and 10th Horse Cavalry Association, and decided to create a museum to put his artifacts on display for the Houston area. And 20 years later, we've grown into an educational institution, performing an arts center, and we have a beautiful venue now in our new facility on Caroline. So it's an institution of African-American military history, and we've expanded over the past few years into just sharing the story of African-American men and women in general.
Now we have with us also Professor Angela Holder and Jason Holt, and they're both descendants of Buffalo Soldiers. We want to welcome you both here to The Factor Uncensored. For those who are not familiar, Professor, about this history, give us a brief synopsis of the Buffalo Soldiers in America.
The Buffalo Soldiers came out of the reassignment of soldiers who were called the USCT, the United States Colored Troops, who served during the Civil War. They were the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st all-black units, as well as the 9th and 10th Cavalry, predominantly black units. They were led by white officers. And after the Civil War, they were given a new assignment. The units were consolidated. The 38th and the 41st made up I think it was the 24th Infantry Regiment, and the 39th and the 40th made up the 25th Infantry Regiment. If I'm incorrect about that, Desmond will get for me. And so here at the 9th and 10th Cavalry, they also served. So now they would go out to help develop the Western frontier. As Captain Matthews is so fond of saying, if it had not been for these men, the West would have been delayed in getting developed by about 50 years. They laid out telegraph lines, they escorted the pay wagon from Wells Fargo. They also escorted delivery of mail. They also helped in relationships with Native Americans. So they did quite a bit. They did not have the best of equipment all the time as well in terms of horses, uniforms, but they did the best of what they had, and they did an outstanding job. And this is why we celebrate these men today.
Let's bring Jason Holt into this conversation. And you are a descendant of a Buffalo Soldier. Tell me what that pride is like to be a descendant.
Oh, I can't even begin to describe it to you, particularly during the time that we're speaking about, which is the early 1900s, where I had family members that were in the 10th Cavalry and also in the 24th Infantry. It's a sense of connectivity. It's a sense of just generational chutzpah that you get when you think about all of the experiences that these individuals had. And I have to emphasize, particularly back in the early stages and growth periods of our country.
At this point, we'd like to bring in Kowalski Salter. He is the guest curator of military exhibition at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Mr. Salter, how important and how significant is it to preserve this part of American history where African Americans are involved in the military, specifically like the Buffalo Soldiers?
I think it's extremely important. First of all, I would like to say I'm the past guest associate curator at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I am now the executive director of the museums at Cantigny Park outside of Chicago. But it's extremely significant for several reasons, but I'll just give one. For all Americans to understand that African Americans had been there on the battlefield from 1866 forward. And I say 1866 forward because that's when the Buffalo Soldiers were established, Reorganization Act. But African Americans had been serving in the military in the American Civil War, the Mexican-American War, the War of 1812, and the American Revolution. But in 1866, with this Reorganization Act, now they become a lasting, permanent part of the military. And that is the significance for all of them, all Americans. But for African Americans particularly, it is a sense of belonging. When you go back to what Desmond said and what the professor said and what Jason said, African Americans have been involved in the building of this country, the fighting of this country. And when you just take one example at San Juan Hill, the Buffalo Soldiers were there and they were significant and key in helping to win that battle, which was a pivotal battle in the Spanish-American War.
And Desmond, back to you. Are visitors, are individuals fully appreciative of this history and what we have established here in the city of Houston with this museum?
Absolutely. We get people who come in and experience something almost supernatural. Looking at an exhibit or an artifact or something that reminds them of their grandfather or something that connects them with the story. So there's always a connection, and anybody from any race, any ethnicity and background, there's always something that you can connect with at the museum, because we are not, and this is something that Captain says a lot, we're an African, we chronicle the African-American story, but we're an American history institution. So there is something that everyone can relate to.
Now, for more information, go to buffalosoldiermuseum.com.